What if I told you that somewhere in the depths of Greenland's ice, botanical specimens are waiting to be discovered? Specimens that died out 15,000 years ago. And what if I told you that the only reason we found them was because of a man who claimed he could smell flowers that hadn't bloomed since the last ice age? This is the story of Dr. Marcus Fielding, a neurologist whose rare condition became the key to unlocking one of botany's greatest mysteries. But as you'll discover, some memories are buried in ice for a reason. In 1997, Dr. Fielding walked into the emergency room of Massachusetts General Hospital, complaining of violent headaches, and what he described as overwhelming floral scents that seemed to come from nowhere. The attending physician initially suspected a brain tumor, but the MRI revealed something far more unusual. Fielding's olfactory bulb, the part of the brain responsible for processing smell, was nearly 3 times larger than normal, riddled with abnormal neural pathways that seemed to connect directly to his hippocampus. The memory center. What happened next defied medical explanation. As Fielding's condition progressed, he began experiencing what he called scent memories, not his own memories, but memories that seemed to belong to someone else entirely. He would suddenly smell jasmine in winter, roses in the desert, or, most disturbing of all, flowers he couldn't identify but could describe with haunting precision. The first botanist to take Fielding seriously was Dr. Elena Vasquez from Harvard's Arnold Arboretum. She was studying the decline of pollinator species when a colleague mentioned Fielding's case as a medical curiosity. Intrigued, she decided to test him. Vasquez brought Fielding to her greenhouse and had him smell over 200 different plant specimens while blindfolded. His accuracy was extraordinary, 97% correct identification, even distinguishing between subspecies that most trained botanists couldn't differentiate by scent alone. But it was what happened next that changed everything. After the test, Fielding became agitated. He kept insisting there were other scents in the greenhouse, flowers that Vasquez must be hiding from him. When she assured him he had smelled every plant available, he became desperate, almost frantic. He began describing scents unlike anything in her collection, a climbing vine with blossoms that smelled like vanilla mixed with copper pennies, a tree flower that carried the scent of fresh snow and burning cedar, and most memorably, a small purple bloom that he said smelled like the moment just before lightning strikes. These descriptions haunted Vasquez. They were too specific, too botanical in their detail to be fabrications, yet they matched no living plant species. She began documenting Fielding's phantom scents, eventually compiling over 400 detailed descriptions of flowers that, according to every botanical database, did not exist. The breakthrough came when Vasquez showed Fielding's descriptions to her mentor, Dr. Harrison Webb, a paleobotanist who specialized in plant extinctions. Webb's face went pale as he read. Several of Fielding's descriptions closely matched fossil evidence of plants that had died out during the Younger Dryas period, the last great cooling event that occurred roughly 12,000 years ago. But here's where the story takes a darker turn. As Webb began correlating Fielding's descriptions with fossil records, he noticed something troubling. Many of the plants Fielding described didn't match any known fossils. They seemed to be from an even older period, possibly from before the last ice age entirely. This raised an impossible question. How could someone remember scents from plants that died out before human civilization even existed? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Rebecca Thorne, an anthropologist studying Pleistocene-era archaeological sites, had been following the case through academic journals. She contacted Webb with a disturbing theory. What if Fielding wasn't remembering his own experiences at all? What if he was somehow accessing genetic memory, olfactory experiences encoded in DNA and passed down through countless generations? Thorne pointed to recent research showing that traumatic experiences could alter gene expression in ways that affected descendants. She theorized that early humans who survived the great extinctions might have developed enhanced olfactory memories. As a survival mechanism, the ability to remember which plants were safe, which were poisonous, and which were simply gone forever. But if this was genetic memory, it raised another horrifying possibility. What traumatic events had encoded these sent memories so deeply into human DNA? What had our ancestors witnessed that was so devastating it scarred our genetic code for thousands of years? The team decided to search for physical evidence. Using Fielding's descriptions as a guide, they identified locations in Greenland where ice core samples might contain preserved pollen or seeds from the plants he described. The logistics were nightmarish, drilling operations in some of the most remote and dangerous terrain on Earth, all based on the olfactory hallucinations of a man whose brain was slowly destroying itself. Because that's the other part of this story. Fielding's condition was degenerative. The same abnormal neural growth that gave him his extraordinary ability was also killing him. As his olfactory bulb continued to expand, it began pressing against other parts of his brain. He started experiencing seizures, memory loss, and periods where he couldn't distinguish between real sense and phantom ones. The first expedition to Greenland was a disaster. Equipment failures, extreme weather, and insufficient funding forced the team to abandon their drilling operations after only 3 weeks. But they managed to extract several ice core samples from depths corresponding to the time periods Fielding had described. Back in the lab, the analysis was painstaking. Using electron microscopy and advanced chemical analysis, they searched for any organic material that might match Fielding's phantom sense. For months, they found nothing. Then, in a sample taken from ice that was estimated to be 14,000 years old, they discovered something unprecedented. Preserved in the ice were pollen grains unlike anything in modern botanical records. The pollen structure matched Fielding's description of his copper pennyvine with eerie accuracy. Even more disturbing, when they managed to extract enough pollen to analyze its chemical composition, they found compounds that modern plants simply don't produce: complex aromatic molecules that would have created exactly the scent. Fielding had described that this discovery launched a massive international research effort. Over the next 5 years, teams returned to Greenland 7 times. Each expedition guided by Fielding's increasingly desperate and detailed descriptions. They found seeds, pollen, and in one case, an entire preserved flower frozen in ice for 13,000 years. But as the discoveries mounted, so did the questions. How was it possible that Fielding's descriptions were so accurate? And why did he seem to know not just how these extinct plants smelled, but where to find them, what time of year they bloomed, and most disturbingly, how they had died? The answer came in the final expedition, when the team discovered something that challenged everything they thought they knew about human history. In ice that was over 15,000 years old, they found evidence of what appeared to be a massive botanical extinction event, a die-off. So complete and sudden that it left behind layers of compressed plant material mixed with what could only be described as ash. Chemical analysis of the ash revealed traces of compounds consistent with massive fires. But also something else. Evidence of human activity, tools, charred bone fragments, and most significantly, what appeared to be intentionally burned plant material. The implication was staggering. Early humans hadn't just witnessed this great extinction, they had caused it. Fielding's final interview was conducted just weeks before his death. By then, his condition had progressed to the point where he could barely speak, but his sense of smell remained unnaturally acute. When asked about the ash layers, his response was chilling. They burned everything. They had to. The flowers. They were wrong. They made people do things, terrible things. The burning was mercy. Dr. Marcus Fielding died on a Tuesday morning in March of 2004, in a hospital room that nurses reported smelled inexplicably of flowers, though no flowers were present. His final words, according to the attending physician, were, "They're blooming again. Can you smell them? They're blooming again." The research continues. In laboratories around the world, scientists are attempting to germinate seeds that have been frozen for over 10,000 years. Most attempts fail, but a few have shown signs of life, brief moments of growth before the seedlings wither and die, as if they remember that their time has passed. Some researchers report unusual experiences while working with the specimens. Vivid dreams about vast gardens, inexplicable cravings for certain scents, and in a few cases, temporary but severe allergic reactions to plants that, according to every test, should be completely inert. The official research has been suspended. Pending further safety reviews, the specimens remain in storage, frozen and sealed. While ethics committees debate whether humanity has the right to resurrect what our ancestors may have deliberately destroyed, but sometimes, late at night in the research facilities, staff report catching glimpses of impossible scents drifting through the corridors: vanilla and copper pennies, snow and burning cedar, and always, always, the electric smell of approaching lightning. Because perhaps some extinctions aren't accidental. Perhaps some things are meant to stay buried in the ice. And perhaps Marcus Fielding's genetic memories weren't just showing us what we had lost. They were warning us about what we should never find again. The next time you catch a scent that seems out of place, that reminds you of something you can't quite remember, ask yourself this: are you smelling something real? Or are you accessing memories that were never yours to begin with? And more importantly, if our ancestors went to such lengths to erase these plants from existence, what did they know that we're only beginning to understand? The seeds remain frozen, waiting. The memories persist in our DNA. And somewhere in the ice, 15,000 years of silence is slowly beginning to crack.